Coming up now in your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, we've got all the latest information concerning Vince McMahon's resignation from TKO Group Holdings. We've got reactions to Triple H's comments regarding Vince McMahon at the Royal Rumble press conference. We've also got news on tonight's WWE Raw from the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. All that and more coming up now. On Monday, TKO Group Holdings submitted a filing to the Securities and Exchange Commission to officially announce that Vince McMahon has resigned from all positions related to the company. Up on your screen now is what the filing says. And it says on January 26th, 2024, Vincent K. McMahon notified the board of directors, the board of TKO Group Holdings, TKO, of his resignation from his positions as executive chair and a member of the board and any other positions, employment or otherwise, he has at TKO and its subsidiaries, in each case with immediate effect as of January 26, 2024. So no beating around the bush. McMahon's gone. He doesn't even do anything. He's completely gone from TKO Group Holdings. So a lot is being made of Triple H's handling of questions regarding Vince McMahon at the post-event Royal Rumble press event. And so up on your screen now, this is an article from WrestleZone, which has just transcribed some of his comments. So Triple H very much tried to avoid questions related to Vince McMahon's resignation during the presser. And I'm just highlighting some of his comments up on your screen now. So in response to a question about Vince McMahon's resignation and the allegations in Janelle Grant's lawsuit, Triple H said, "I'm going to do exactly what you expect me to do here. Look, we just had an amazing week. A 10-year, $5 billion Netflix deal. The Rock joining our board. We just sold out the Royal Rumble, put 48,000 people in Tropicana Field. The Tampa Bay Rays can't even do that for MLB playoffs." He didn't say that, but I wanted to point that out. "I choose to focus on the positive. Yes, there's a negative, but I want to focus on that and just keep it to that." Later, he would say, "I'll give you the most generalized..." Oh, he was asked, what does WWE plan to do to make sure that other people in positions of power in the company don't take advantage of that as well in the same way that Vince McMahon did. And so Triple H responded that, "I'll give you the most generalized answer that I can. Everything possible. That is a very important thing to us, a very important topic to us. It's as simple as everything possible." So he's just saying, without giving any particulars, that they are going to do everything possible to prevent a similar scenario in the future. He was asked by Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics about whether he had read the lawsuit, and Triple H contends that he did not. He said, "I did not. I did not. I think Cody mentioned it, that we all found out real time when you were. And that's the truth. I'll go back to what I said before. This is an amazing week for us. At this point, I don't even want to get bogged down in the negatives of it. I just want to focus on the positives and where we're going. And we're at the most exciting time of the year for us. We're at the most exciting point to me, business-wise, I think, that we've ever had." So he was doing his best to deflect from this question. He didn't want to answer any questions related to Vince McMahon at all. And he was just trying to bring everything back to, hey, we just announced a $5 billion deal with Netflix. The Rock's on our board. We just had a great Royal Rumble. He continued, "I think it's the best positioning of this company since the Attitude Era. I've been through that era. I understand what it's like. I feel like we are in the middle of something that, while we might not be able to put our finger on it right now, 5-10 years from now, we're going to be saying, wow, what a time that was. I want to focus on that." So clearly somebody has told Triple H, hey, when you go out there and you get asked questions about this, just move everything to the topic of, hey, we've had a great week, except for the really, really, really bad stuff. So, as Triple H mentioned in his response, Cody Rhodes was also asked a question about Vince McMahon during his part in the post-event press conference. Nick Hossman asked Cody Rhodes about performing on the Royal Rumble while all of these stories about Vince McMahon have been making headlines. And Rhodes said, I know as far as the news is concerned, we were finding it out and reading the same things that you guys were reading. You said a dark cloud, certainly. As far as TKO, Nick Khan and the board clearly took it very seriously, acted immediately. Looking at the future, I don't know the answer to that. I think somewhere is probably a basic tenet of just this crew more than ever from a roster standpoint is very family. I've never seen anything like this. Most of the time, wrestling locker rooms have fighting, talking trash about each other, making fun of each other, sandbagging each other in the ring, all that nonsense. So basically, he was asked about the Vince McMahon scandal and said it did put a dark cloud over the Royal Rumble weekend. Um, Cody's response in terms of how do we know this isn't going to happen again was basically to say, hey, I've never been in a locker room like this. We're all family. We're all going to look out for each other. But of course, Cody Rhodes does not have any role as an executive in WWE, but a lot of people say that his answers to the Vince McMahon, well, he was only asked one question about Vince McMahon at the presser, but a lot of people are saying that his answer was just a little more detailed, and Cody seemed more willing to address the allegations against Vince McMahon than Triple H was. But you have to imagine that everybody who came out for the presser, and it was only three people, just Bailey, Cody, and Triple H. You have to imagine that they were all read the riot act by lawyers representing the company on what they can say and what they can't say. And that was the case for a lot of press leading up to the Royal Rumble as well. Loading up now an article from the Orlando Sentinel. Okay, so the Orlando Sentinel writes here, and of course, you know, the Royal Rumble's in Tampa, so they're trying to get contacts with numerous people in wrestling. And they wrote that that many wrestlers declined to comment on the allegation. So they wrote, as at a previously scheduled media event Friday, multiple WWE wrestlers declined to comment directly to the Sentinel on the allegations, intending to focus on their own business in the ring. However, one wrestler that did get back to them was Natalya. And she said to the Sentinel, I've seen and I've read what everybody else has seen and read. I feel like at the end of the day, the best thing we can do, especially as women in the locker room, is keep moving forward. So clearly, some talking points have been handed down to wrestlers. One of the big ones appears to be, hey, we found out as soon as you guys found out, to sort of send the message that, oh, well, you're talking to someone who doesn't have any new information to add. So that's definitely something that the wrestlers and Triple H and others have been told. And then trying to work the conversation back into the success of the on-screen product right now with a successful Royal Rumble show, the new deal with Netflix, and so forth. And some very interesting comments are up on your screen right now from Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey had some things to say that one could take as very critical of both Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard, of course, still employed by WWE. So before I read Ronda Rousey's, all right, here's Ronda Rousey's statement. And this was put out on January 27th, one day after Vince McMahon's resignation. Ronda Rousey writes, Bruce Pritchard is basically Vince's avatar. If he's still around if he's still around, Vince still has a hand in the business. Vince was still running things through Bruce when he was, quote, gone, end quote, before. So Ronda Rousey, I mean, those are some pretty damning comments there. Clearly, she has had some issue with Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon. And I want to go back to a comment that Rousey made in March of 2023. And this was just before she took part in the four-way tag team women's showcase match at WrestleMania 39. Rousey was on one of her video game streams, and she was asked about the rivalry that she had with Liv Morgan. And oh wait, no, that wasn't her video game. stream. Excuse me, that was not her video game stream. This was just on her Instagram. She actually wrote this in a caption. So, referring to her storyline with Liv Morgan, she wrote, "Imagine what our Liv Morgan feud could have been if we weren't hamstrung by a bunch of octogenarians who still think they know how to be hip while putting less than 5 minutes of thought a week into each women's storyline." Woo! Ronda taking shots at her former employers, Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon. Now, it's no secret to anyone that even just watches the shows that when Triple H is booking, the women's divisions are treated much more seriously. We've already seen on WWE programming since Triple H took over again that there are more women's angles. There are more women's tag teams being developed. I'll talk about this with Jeff on Zen and the Art of Watching Wrestling later this week. The Women's Royal Rumble match built up rivalries amongst a bunch of women's tag teams. So I think we're going to get a greater emphasis on women's tag teams moving forward. Another bit of news that stems from Janelle Grant's lawsuit that was filed last Thursday is Brock Lesnar was reportedly withdrawn from the WWE Royal Rumble after the lawsuit was filed, after he was sort of named in the lawsuit. It was a former UFC heavyweight champion was mentioned in the lawsuit. The Wall Street Journal then reported that this was Brock Lesnar. Of course, since Cain Velasquez wasn't around at the time, he's the only UFC heavyweight champion I think that's been in their employ. So it was reported by various outlets. Fightful Select reported that Brock Lesnar had been scheduled to return in the Rumble. I believe it was PW Insider then that offered an update that he had been withdrawn from the match. And this is all I'm reading, an article that's on SEScoops.com that covers reports by Fightful, PW Insider, The Wrestling Observer, and you're watching it all on YouTube. So lots of outlets involved in bringing you this information. So the terminology one source used was that Lesnar had been withdrawn from tonight's event, and the belief was that a WWE NXT talent would be used in Lesnar's place tonight. So there is news out there about who replaced Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble and what the creative originally was planned for Lesnar. This is a spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, so we're not going to tell you what it is. But if you want to know what that information is, it's out there for you. So what we will say is that there had been plans for Brock Lesnar to return to WWE. That was supposed to happen in the Royal Rumble. As of now, there's no idea if those plans are going to happen or not. So it is listed here that that a former UFC heavyweight champion, So there's a couple of different mentions of Lesnar in the lawsuit. One was that McMahon began sharing sexually explicit photographs and videos of Miss Grant to people both in and outside the company, one of those being a former UFC heavyweight champion. So pretty easy to put together who that might be. And there was another part in the lawsuit where a sexual encounter with Miss Grant was promised to a wrestling star on the roster as part of contract negotiations. And it's rumored / reported that that was Brock Lesnar as well. So, in light of these allegations about him in the lawsuit against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE, the decision was made for Brock Lesnar to be withdrawn from the Royal Rumble. What that means for his future, no clue. All right, and some news coming out regarding Jordynne Grace's appearance in the Royal Rumble. Of course, she is the Knockouts champion. I think it was a couple of years ago, Mickie James appeared in the Royal Rumble as the Knockouts champion as well. So there's a few reports out there regarding how this all came together. It's being reported by multiple outlets that WWE reached out to potential partner organizations such as TNA Wrestling and inquired about getting wrestlers for the Rumble. PW Insider is reporting that Triple H specifically wanted Jordan Grace for the role, and certainly he was very complimentary of Grace in the Royal Rumble post-event press conference. Triple H was. So a few things here. Scott D'Amore put out just a thank you to WWE for having Jordan Grace in the Rumble. Says she killed it. Trinity wrote, Naomi once again, but the former Trinity in TNA Wrestling, who of course returned in the Royal Rumble. She was the number 2 entrant. She also had a cool moment there with Jordan Grace, and she sent out this tweet saying, "I personally want to thank Scott D'Amore, D'Lo Brown, Lance Storm, Gail Kim, Tommy Dreamer for believing in me and pushing me through my fears, knockouts, and brothers, for accepting me as one of your own. TNA, I am better in every way because of you. Thank you with my whole," and I'm assuming she means heart. And so Jordan Grace put this thing up here. Now, in terms of a future relationship between TNA Wrestling and WWE, it has been reported by multiple outlets that there's nothing on the table for future work between the two companies, but they appear to have a decent relationship. So something like this could easily happen again. Jordan Grace wrote on Twitter, "Thank you to the WWE Universe. This won't be the last you see of TNA." And Natalya, who I don't have this confirmed, but I'm assuming had a hand in helping Grace prepare for her performance in the Royal Rumble. Natty just wrote, "I can't wait to wrestle you again soon." So is this the last we see of Jordan Grace in WWE? I feel like probably not. I think Grace has been undervalued for some time now, which is to TNA's gain. She obviously, the Knockouts division is a focal part of TNA Wrestling, and she's been a huge part of that for years now. But evidently, when she was a free agent last, nobody was able to lure her away from TNA Wrestling. I'm wondering if it's the case now that WWE, especially if Triple H specifically requested her, I'm wondering if WWE might have any interest in bringing her on full-time. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I thought these were interesting comments from Gunther, the record-setting intercontinental champion, was asked recently about having multiple finishers, or the idea that you should have one finisher, maybe two finishers, and that's what ends the match all the time. But Gunther doesn't think like that. Gunther thinks it's good to, hey, maybe I'll win this one with a powerbomb, this one with a rear naked choke, this one with the clothesline. I think that's what makes sense for me. And so he said during an interview with Fightful that it's a cliche to just have one wrestling finisher. And so he said, it's a wrestling cliche, a finisher and stuff. It's also a thing that WWE established. I see the big upside to it, but I always approach my wrestling logically. Whatever makes sense that day to do in that situation, that's how I approach it. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's also very interesting that he mentioned WWE establishing each wrestler having a finishing hold. I don't necessarily know if that's correct, but WWE certainly played a very large role in establishing that as the norm. I mean, certainly wrestlers had finishing moves or moves that were associated with them before WWE. You know. In other news, Tokyo Sports is confirming that Hiromu Takahashi has re-signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Tokyo Sports' Yusuke Okamoto reported on Monday that Hiromu Takahashi had left New Japan Pro Wrestling's offices and gave him a quick statement saying that he'd signed a new contract. And so here is a translation of Okamoto's post. He wrote, "Breaking news, Hiromu Takahashi, whose contract was renewed today, quickly left the office without responding to any interviews from the waiting press." In brackets, I was the only one. That's all from the scene. Ah, wait a minute. This is a line from Hiromu-chan. I signed a contract. It's a contract. Hiromu Takahashi is under contract. That's all from the scene. And finally, WWE presents Raw tonight from the Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. 2 nights after Royal Rumble took place at the Tropicana Field, also in Tampa, Florida. 12,459 tickets have been distributed to today's show, so they will have a good crowd on hand in the Amalie Arena tonight. 3 matches are scheduled for the show. 2 of them are title matches. In the one that is not, Jey Uso is going to go one-on-one with Big Bronson Reed. And then for the Intercontinental Championship, Kofi Kingston is going to challenge Gunther. And for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships, Finn Balor and Damian Priest of Judgment Day will defend against DIY's Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. And that's going to do it for this video, everyone. Make sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. Click all of those things, and we'll see you next video.